The story of the Second World War does not begin in 1939, but in the bitter aftermath of the First Great Conflict. The Treaty of Versailles redrew the world, creating fragile new borders and deep-seated resentment that would eventually set the world ablaze once more. By the 1930s, the optimism of the Roaring Twenties had vanished, replaced by the crushing weight of the Great Depression. In the shadow of economic despair, radical ideologies found fertile ground. Weary citizens stood in long lines, trading their hope for promises of strength. On September 1st, 1939, the tension finally snapped. The era of diplomacy ended, and the age of total war began. The Luftwaffe filled the skies, signaling a new kind of warfare, the Blitzkrieg, where speed and terror were the primary weapons. While Poland fell, a strange silence descended upon the Western Front. It was the phony war, a tense waiting game behind concrete walls. The peaceful landscape belied the storm gathering just beyond the horizon as both sides prepared for the inevitable collision. In May 1940, the silence was shattered. German armor surged through the impenetrable Ardennes forest, outflanking the Allied defenses. France fell with terrifying speed. Within weeks, the shadow of occupation stretched over the streets of Paris. Trapped against the sea at Dunkirk, the British army faced annihilation. But then an extraordinary rescue began. A flotilla of civilian boats, yachts, fishing trawlers, and lifeboats emerged from the fog to pull their boys from the jaws of defeat. With Europe conquered, Britain stood alone. Winston Churchill became the voice of defiance in the kingdom's darkest hour. Night after night, the skies over London were filled with fire as the Blitz attempted to break the spirit of the British people. But the people endured. In the underground shelters, they found a community of resilience that no bomb could shatter. Then Hitler turned his gaze east. Operation Barbarossa launched a massive invasion of the Soviet Union, opening the largest front in history. While war raged in Europe, a surprise strike in the Pacific brought a slumbering giant into the conflict. America's entry transformed the war. Its vast industrial power became the arsenal of democracy, churning out the tools of victory. In the ruins of Stalingrad, the tide finally turned. In the frozen winter, the German army met its first catastrophic defeat. Simultaneously, in the deserts of North Africa, the desert fox Erwin Rommel was pushed back at the Battle of El Alamein. June 6, 1944. D-Day. The Great Crusade began on the beaches of Normandy. As the Allies launched the largest amphibious assault in history, soldiers faced a wall of fire, jumping into the cold, chaotic waters to reclaim a continent from tyranny. The liberation of France followed. Across the country, the sound of tank treads was met with cheers and waving flags. In the Pacific, a brutal island-hopping campaign moved steadily toward Japan, fighting for every inch of volcanic ash and jungle. By 1945, the end was in sight. Berlin became a graveyard of stone as the Soviet and Western armies closed the pincers. The war ended with a flash that changed the world forever. The atomic age arrived, bringing a terrifying new power into human hands. On the deck of the USS Missouri, the documents of surrender were signed. The most destructive conflict in history was finally over. As the guns fell silent, a new world order emerged from the ashes, built on the promise of peace and collective security. We remember the cost so that we may never have to pay it again. From the ruins of 1945, the modern world was born.